ask you to rise in body or spirit. Good morning. We've been working on this song for a little bit. I think you know it by now. If not, you'll catch up. Yeah? Here we go. Gather in, gather in, gather in. Here we go. Gather in all the people, gather in. There's a place here for all people, gather in. 'Cause when I sit beside your spirit, the road seems a little less dim. Gather in all your people, gather in. Oh, I hear you already, you're sounding good again. Gather in all your people, gather in. There's a place here. There's a place here for all people, gather in. 'Cause when I sit beside your spirit, the road seems a little less dim. Gather in all your people, gather in. How about gather in all your voices? Gather in all your voices, gather in. There's a place here for all voices, gather in. 'Cause when I sit beside your spirit, the road seems a little less dim. Gather in all your voices, gather in. Gather in all your stories, gather in all your stories, gather in. There's a place here for your stories, gather in. 'Cause when I sit beside your spirit, the road seems a little less dim. Gather in all your stories, gather in. Gather in. Sorry, gather in. Here, gather in all your stories, gather in. There's a place here for your stories, gather in. When I sit beside your spirit, the road seems a little less dim. Gather in all your stories, gather in. All right, let's try some parts here. Can you help me out? We're going to sing Gather In. Gather in, gather in, gather in. Could everybody in the room sing that? Let's hear your voices. Gather in. Gather in, you're sounding good. Gather in, gather in, you're sounding good. If you'll keep singing, got it? And we're gonna sing all the people, all the people. Can you sing that with me? All the people, all the people. You're sounding good. All the people. Can y'all help me and sing up? Gather in. Belt it out. Gather. Sounding good. Gather in. You're sounding great. Gather in. Gather in. Let's keep on going. We're going to do this together. Gather in. Gather in all your joy. Gather in. Gather in. Gather in all your joy. You're sounding good. Gather in all your justice. Gather in all your peace. Gather in. Gather in. Last time. Here we go. Gather in. Gather in. You want us to start now? 1, 2, 3.
Dad taught me to love the way things used to be, that graveyards and battlefields weren't just history. To like driving on paved roads and watching cotton grow, and that how you start out life doesn't say how far you'll go. These are among the things my father gave to me. He listened to Jim Reeves and Jimmy Rogers, loved his college football and the way my mother smiled. He liked smoking cheap cigars outside, yard work was his exercise. I have all these memories, and I have his eyes. These are among the things my father gave to me. He taught me how to hold my ground and showed me I should not look down on those whose words and skin were different from my own. He told me war was a waste, but he made sure to put the dates of his service on his final stone. These are among the things my father gave to me. Because of him, I like baseball on the radio and getting a newspaper every day, reading sentimental poetry from the 19th century. And I'll have my ashes spread in Texas when I die. These are among the things my father gave to me. These are among the things my father gave to me. Happy Father's Day.
You'll wait until we're finished with the entire drill. Okay. This is a call to arms. Arms that will hold broken hearts and elated hearts. Arms that wrap themselves around a body beaten and disfigured in truth and metaphorically.
Arms that provide a strength neither giver nor receiver knew they possessed. Arms that hold up the sky of misplaced authority and righteousness from crashing down upon heads struggling to be held high. As each shred of dignity is yanked from their tired, overused, underappreciated bodies.
This is a call for committed arms to continue leading heads and hearts, to know the facts, but feel the truth. A call to remember that the freedom we've been given to swing our arms as wide and open to the sun as we like has come on the backs of humans others wish were invisible.
This is a call to arms, ourselves with the facts, but feel the truth, born out of the power of our Unitarian Universalist love and the balance of justice.
We kindle our chalice flame this morning, awakening the fire of our ancestors in our hearts, beacon of freedom, held out to light the way, light of reason, illuminating the path, spark of courage, igniting our spirits, aglow with hope for all we endeavor to do together. You don't have it? Here.
Holy flame of times past, brighten this present moment, that we may be the love that is our center and our foundation both. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you, James. So good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I have some stuff over here. Yes. We're calling this a magic iPad today. That has all this stuff. Wow, good morning and happy Juneteenth, happy Pride, happy Father's Day, and happy No Kings. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, or ERUUF as we like to say. My name is Reverend Jacqueline Brett. I'm the lead minister here. And whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender identities, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey or in your search for truth, for meaning, for freedom and liberation, know that you are welcome here in beloved community. And if you are visiting with us today, I invite you to rise in body or spirit so that we can give you an ERUUF welcome. Welcome to you all, and we are always so grateful when folks choose to spend their Sunday morning with us, so thank you for being here. And should you wish, those of you who are visiting, know that you can attend a class that's taking place right after this service in the building next door, called Inquirers for Visitors and Newcomers. It's a class where you can get to learn something about us and also share something about yourself as well. And today's class is about what we ministers do anyway. And I'm leading that class. So come on down. I'd love to have you there with your questions and inquiring minds. Now would be a great time for everyone to turn down to worship mode any devices you might have. And let us all center ourselves into this time, into this moment. And let's all take a collective deep breath in and let it out. Yes, I heard that one over there. Yes, that's how I feel. All right, let us begin.
Good morning. I would love to welcome our young ones and young of heart down here for Time for All Ages. If you'd like to join me for story time. Good morning. Yes, everybody's welcome if you'd like to come see the story. Good morning. So good to see y'all. Hey. Good morning. So, we have an important story today. Good morning. And it is about Juneteenth. Who has heard of Juneteenth? Good number of people. Excellent. We're about to hear a lot more about it. So we've got a story that's going to go over what it is and how it started. So today's story is the Juneteenth story celebrating the end of slavery in the United States. It's by Elia L. Agostini and illustrated by Sawyer Cloud. Yes, more friends. Feel free to hop in. All right, now this one is to my grandparents, Judson Travels Price Jr. and Frances May Taliaferro Price, and generations of our ancestors. It's an honor to stand on your shoulders. Do y'all know what an ancestor is? What is it?
It's like a grandmother or great-great-grandmother.
Yeah, the people who came before you. Just so happens to be Father's Day too. It's an interesting connection. So your father is also an ancestor. Usually it means people further back. So, the story of Juneteenth started hundreds of years before it was ever celebrated. On July 4th, 1776, Independence Day, America broke away from British rule and was finally able to bask in the light of freedom. But not everyone who lived there was that fortunate. For what would span over 300 years, more than 400,000 African people were stolen from their homes and made to help build the country that became this free America. Though some tried to fight back, they and many of their descendants were enslaved, brutally forced to work for no pay, and denied their basic rights. They could not eat when they wanted to eat. They could not play when they wanted to play. They could not live how they wanted to live. And Independence Day did not free them. It would take 89 more years until enslaved people, too, would be free. Glimmers of freedom appeared state by state in the new independent America. Vermont was the first to free or emancipate its enslaved people in 1777. Slowly, other northern states did too. Some people had long opposed slavery. Called abolitionists, they were especially active in the 1830s, fighting slavery's injustice with words and sometimes force. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? Asked abolitionist Frederick Douglass on July 5, 1852. How can someone who is not free celebrate freedom? But emancipation stopped cold at the southern states. They refused to free their enslaved people. Enslaved people's work made lots of money for large southern farms. So in these states especially, freedom for all was bad for business. Abolitionists work hard to end slavery, but in some states, enslavers, those who held enslaved people, worked just as hard to keep it going. Although Congressman Abraham Lincoln didn't always believe black and white people deserved equal rights, he did believe the idea of slavery was wrong. When he was elected president in 1860, 7 southern states did the unthinkable and broke away from the United States of America. They left the nation to form a new country called the Confederate States of America, sometimes called the Confederacy, where slavery would remain legal. On April 12, 1861, the Civil War began. Southern states versus northern states, Confederacy versus Union. The North entered the war because they did not want the United States to break up into 2 countries. However, eventually the war became a battle to end slavery. As the Civil War continued, President Lincoln took steps to end slavery. On January 1, 1863, he issued an order called the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all enslaved persons in the now 10 states of the Confederacy forever free. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution was passed 2 years later, after the Civil War ended, officially freeing all enslaved people in the United States. So that big document he's got there is the Emancipation Proclamation. Slavery had become illegal, but in Confederate Texas, enslavers kept that news a secret. The big state of Texas was far from where most of the battles of the Civil War were being fought, so no Union soldiers were close enough to make sure that the new laws were followed there. Texas farm owners had crops to harvest and sell. Without enslaved workers, who would pick them? The Civil War had ended, but enslaved Texans were not told the truth. They continued working because they didn't know that they were actually free. The Confederacy surrendered to the Union on April 9, 1865, but it wasn't until June 19th that Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas. The war now over, he declared his General Order, No. 3, from a balcony. He said, "The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free." This happened 900 days after the Emancipation Proclamation, 89 years after Independence Day, and 339 years after the first enslaved Africans came to the land that is now America. The secret was finally out. Freedom now belongs to enslaved people too. So they were working for a long time after they were actually supposed to be free. Newly freed Texans began to feel the long-delayed warmth of liberty's glow. As the news spread, they prayed, ate, and sang in celebration, though some were still in shock. Others left right away to search for and reunite with long-lost family members from whom they had been separated by slavery. June 19th became Jubilee Day. It was their Independence Day. Starting in 1866, families and communities in Texas held the first yearly Jubilee Day celebrations. The next year, the Freedmen's Bureau hosted the first Jubilee Day held in a state capital and taught formerly enslaved people about the privileges that freedom offered them. Jubilee Day festivities grew, and the newly emancipated used their new rights to earn money and purchase property. They bought land and built parks like Emancipation Park in Houston, their own spaces where they could freely gather in their best clothes to barbecue, sing, dance, pray, and play. At many Jubilee Days, the Emancipation Proclamation was recited so that everyone could reflect on the words that had changed their lives forever. Jubilee Day became Juneteenth, short for the date of June 19th. Not all Black people saw Juneteenth as a reason to hold big, joyous events. Some felt their pain from enslavement would never be understood by younger generations who hadn't lived through it, so they hosted their own separate gatherings. Others tried to ignore Juneteenth altogether. Slavery was a terrible memory, and they preferred to not talk about it. And even though Black people were no longer enslaved, freedom wasn't the same for them as it was for other Americans. As the 1900s arrived, new laws spread throughout the South, limiting Black people's rights and keeping Black and white people separate. Called Jim Crow laws, these rules made it hard for many Black people to have access to opportunities, like good jobs and education. Black people couldn't even enjoy parks where only whites were allowed, forcing many Juneteenth festivities to be held far outside of town. Do y'all see what it says up here on that sign on that tree? It says whites only. So they're not allowing these people into their park. Between Jim Crow and major events of the early 1900s, like World War I and the Great Depression, Juneteenth began to lose its shine. During World War I, some people considered the celebration not American, a reminder of a sad time not worth talking about. And during the Great Depression of 1929 to 1939, people didn't have much extra time or money to use to host fairs or parties. But Juneteenth remained in the hearts of many Black Texans. In 1936, after years of little attention, sparks of Juneteenth reunited with a momentary bang. The Texas Centennial Exposition welcomed more than 46,000 Black visitors to a huge Juneteenth celebration to open its groundbreaking Hall of Negro Life, an entire building dedicated to famous Black inventors, scholars, celebrities, and more. It featured huge murals illustrating the history of Black Texans. Pride burned in the hearts of everyone who participated. This is a huge gathering, 46,000 people. As time passed, Black people, especially in the South, grew tired of Jim Crow laws casting shadows on their rights. Many moved north and west for better opportunities, and some also worked together to fight back as part of the civil rights movement. Juneteenth spread as Black Texans moved across America and shared their traditions in their new cities. In the civil rights movement, activists even made Juneteenth part of the 1968 Poor People's Campaign in Washington, D.C., a march for fair access to jobs and housing for people without them. More than 50,000 people took part, and many brought Juneteenth with them back to their homes around the country. In the 1970s, as America prepared to mark 200 years of independence, many Black people remembered Frederick Douglass's words and realized something. Their freedom was not 200 years old. For some, Juneteenth now symbolized their Independence Day. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Buffalo, New York, and more cities well beyond Texas, new Juneteenth traditions came to life. Families reunited, learned about their heritage, paraded, barbecued, and celebrated together. Their festivals grew larger each year. In Texas, Juneteenth festivities continued, and some celebrations, like Austin's, which had stopped for 25 years, were revived. And more than 110 years after the first Juneteenth, State Representative Al Edwards succeeded in making it an official Texas state holiday in 1979. It's taken a long time to get officially recognized, but it's finally recognized. Though Juneteenth has long been recognized in many communities, most Americans still didn't know about it or its history. But a series of horrific events in the weeks before Juneteenth 2020 and a resurgence of Black Lives Matter protests in response put a long overdue spotlight on how poorly Black people have continued to be treated in America. These events and the decades-long efforts of activists and government officials helped Juneteenth finally start to get the national attention it deserves. On June 17, 2021, over 150 years since the first Jubilee Day, it was made an official American holiday. Falling just weeks before Independence Day each year, Juneteenth is a time to remember and celebrate our enslaved ancestors' strength and perseverance. But it also reminds us to keep working towards the American dream, liberty and justice for all. And that is our story. We're going to learn a little bit more about Juneteenth as we continue our religious exploration. Thank you for joining me. Let's get going.
Please greet your neighbors now.
I invite you to join me now for words of prayer and words for your reflection and meditation. Ultimate grace, the heart of every matter, in every perfection and imperfection, in all senses and tenses, in moments of every right and wrong, presenting choices to inquiring hearts. You are in the purpose and the journey of mishaps. You are in moments of understanding and misunderstanding. We have but to seek and invoke you and enable the work of your Spirit, as prayer is but an articulated common dream. We invoke our ultimate concern for the work of faith. We long to be hand in hand, creating a world where everyone belongs. We long to be free from our hindrances. We long to make invisible things visible, the voiceless heard. Lay what is hidden before us. Make the chained unbound, the doubting believe, what is confusing let clarify as hardened hearts grow soft to the touch. May we come in fullness with gratefulness, in faithfulness to one another. May we speak in kind conversing, disclosing our truths with care, expressing our practical wisdom to learn of its practical limits. For the world was not meant to be possessed by a singular truth, but to be built together upon our common revelations. O universe, with stars in your hair, you have shown that great things emerge from humble beginnings, no matter how flawed and lacking. May our eyes seek to appreciate, our breaths to dedicate power, our hands to warm each other. When loving fearlessly, this is when we are invincible. When free will is deliberate, we are pivotal. When dreaming together, we are infinite. Remind us of the very questions that we have turned away from, that we thought could not be answered or are impossible to realize. Dear universal intelligence, your embrace contains everything but confines nothing. In the ever insistence of existence, may this one moment count. We hold in our hearts great compassion for all beings who are experiencing sorrow and suffering at this time, both within our local communities and around the world. We especially send our energies and offer prayers for the well-being of those who are experiencing any form of trauma, violence, or devastation due to war, climate displacement, hunger, injury, illness, or the loss of loved ones. We pray also for the health of our planet that nurtures our lives. We recognize the concerns of those in our ERUUF community, the friends and family of Atreus Good, as they continue to grieve his passing. We hold in our hearts Minister Emerita Reverend Deborah Kerr as she recovers from a successful surgery. And we also join with those who are experiencing joys and celebrations Tom Henley Gillespie and Sohini Mana joyfully announced the birth of a daughter, Rhea Mana Gillespie, on May 8th, 2025. Tom, a birth UU raised at ERUUF, is the son of Nancy Henley and Michael Gillespie. We celebrate with Clint and Flynn McSherry their great joy about the engagement of their son Clint and his amazing fiance Gonzalo. They're also celebrating all fathers today, whether they're biological or chosen family. And beloved community, we hold in our hearts the unspoken concerns and joys among us. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Please remain seated and join me in singing our meditation on breathing, 1009 in the Teal hymnal. The words are on the screen. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
Fuel for freedom. What is this fire in my ivory bones that my red blood runs hot and my brown skin stays warm to my queer touch? I speak of the ancestors' fiery witness, whose gaze lit constellations to freedom, whose vision ignited regenerative futures we still strive to harvest, whose presence kindles applause in love for my Black queer body today. I am proof of their survival, their brilliance, their creativity, their power not only to burn, but to build, to obey and to resist, to nurture and to ignite, to adapt while transforming the world. Let me tell you where my fire comes from. My fourth great-grandfather was named Fuel Williamson. Yes, Fuel. Born in 1832 on a tobacco plantation in Stokes County, North Carolina, Northwest, just 79 miles from here as the crow flies. Now, I don't know how he got free, whether he walked, rode iron rails, or carried a folded letter of manumission close to his heart over a decade before the Emancipation Proclamation. But I know this: when Frederick Douglass cried, "Men of color to arms," he answered, Out of 175 U.S. colored infantry units, Grandpa Fuel enlisted in the 15th, fighting not just for a union, but for a future his children could enter free. He survived the Civil War, but it took a year before his body could bear the weight of the blacksmith's hammer and the work of the farm again. That was in 1866, the same year the Ku Klux Klan was born just miles from his backyard in Tennessee. And when the very Union government he fought for bartered away the promise of Reconstruction to a rising tide of white Christian nationalism, when lynchings rose from 0 to 9 in his neighborhood, freedom fueled his next move. He boarded a steamboat with Benjamin Pap Simpleton and the Exodusers, fleeing Jim Crow to co-found an all-black colony. I have copies of his name on those incorporating documents. It was in that soil that they called John Brown, Kansas, where I was born. That's the earth from which I was born, and the fuel from which my soul still sings. Now, I find myself returned to these lands, both familiar and strange. I teach theater at Duke University, an institution built on wealth from the same tobacco industry my grandpa Fuel never profited from. Yet, 4 generations, here I am. I harvest the fiery blooms of the seeds he planted. Now, I haven't known the same oppression as Grandpa Fuel did. I've had my own. I escaped the closet of my evangelical Mississippi upbringing. I've wrestled with social, institutional, and internalized racism and homophobia. Yet, with the felt presence of ancestors like Grandpa Fuel, I have journeyed, questioned, become, and I am still becoming. I doubt if he could ever have imagined my mixed race marriage, let alone my marriage to another man. But I believe this: if the ancestors live in our bones, they are not fixed. They evolve with us. Let me say it again. If the ancestors live in our bones, they are not fixed. They evolve with us toward more love, toward more life, and toward more freedom. Not just freedom from, but freedom to. You see, I don't wish to burn it all to the ground, because I believe there's fuel here for regenerative kindling, a heated compost to break down what is dying and to carry the next generation home to freedom. Amen, ashe, and blessed be.
I always cautiously ask Johann to be the worship associate, because then I gotta follow Johann. But I'm so happy. So how many of you participated in one of the No Kings marches yesterday? Woo-hoo-hoo. Yes. Thank you so much for doing that. I was unable to be there because I was on duty here, but this is what's meant by our working holistically, each of us holding different roles as we move with determination toward a collective liberation. This morning, we stand at the intersections of three powerful celebrations: Juneteenth, Pride Month, and for the first time, No King's Day. I actually think we should celebrate that one every day as a reminder. Or every year as a reminder. Right now, we gotta celebrate it every day until we have eradicated this no king assumption. Well, y'all know what I'm trying to say. Yes. Each of these carries a profound significance rooted in long-standing struggles for freedom, equality, and equity, the affirmation of identity, and the new, for some of us, understanding that we must collectively and unceasingly take actions to preserve democracy, because the pursuit of freedom and liberation for the individual and all of us is ongoing. When I was a child, I was taught two important things by my elders, perhaps unique to our understanding of who we were as a people, that I have been reflecting on a lot lately. The first being the significance of stars in the sky, the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, and the important location of the North Star between these constellations. I was quite young and was told that if I followed these constellations, I would be able to head north. Now, I lived in Brooklyn, New York, and I had no idea why I needed to know how to head north, because I already lived in the north. But I was told that this was important knowledge to have, and so I have retained it. And I feel both disoriented and worried if I look at the sky and am unable to locate these constellations. I could look at it tonight and feel disoriented if I can't find those constellations. The other bit of knowledge I was given had to do with when enslaved people were granted their freedom. In fourth grade, I was writing an essay about the Civil War and asked my mother, when were the slaves freed? And she said it was in 1865. So at the end of my essay, I said that Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1865, freeing the slaves, which was actually not what I asked my mother. I believed at the time that these two things were one and the same. So, of course, I received a red-inked correction on my paper that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, and thus my paper's grade was lowered. But grade aside, the point is that I was quite puzzled and was really annoyed with my teacher because I felt that my mother would know much more about this and better about this than she did. I wondered about this discrepancy for years until I found out about the events in Galveston, Texas, when enslaved African Americans received the news of their freedom 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Suddenly, the so-called discrepancy in my fourth grade paper made sense. My mother did know when enslaved people were actually freed in this country. The Emancipation Proclamation was actually issued as a war measure. It declared the focus of the Civil War. But the 13th Amendment to the Constitution that actually marked the end of slavery, except under certain conditions, which still stands and is enacted today, itself a whole other situation, right, that we need to talk about. This amendment to the Constitution was actually not passed by Congress until January 31st, 1865, as you all learned in the story. But it doesn't really matter if folks are free in South Carolina, where my family was from, if the people in Texas are not free until 4 months later in June. And I'll say more about this later. Many of you know that I'm a history buff, which is why I share this personal and political history with you. I believe it's essential that we understand our past as we not only determine our future, but also with the recognition that what we're experiencing today is not entirely new. Activist Angela Davis once said, "Freedom is a constant struggle." This struggle is not a historical footnote. It is a living reality that continues to shape our lives today, everyone's lives. Juneteenth is a celebration of that struggle, a reminder of our need to persist in advocating for justice, and that this need is far from over. I believe Juneteenth is a profoundly spiritual holiday, one of joy and sorrow, a time we might not only celebrate, but also reflect upon the resilience, courage, and strength of a people, while also taking some time to consider what it means for us all to engage in the ongoing struggle against systemic injustices, and to recognize the work that still lies ahead as we collectively continue to take actions that aim us toward the freedom of all. And of course, this is also Pride Month, celebrated in June by most of the country, though we here in Durham have our big celebration in September, which is when my point of focus is usually on pride, which I confess as my own shortcoming. Because this occurs when I lose focus upon what actually underlies this celebration to begin with. While pride in most places is an exuberant celebration of our gender identities and sexual orientations, the event itself is actually a commemoration of the Stonewall riots that occurred in Greenwich Village in 1969. More history. Pride is a declaration of existence. Pride is a call for liberation and the right of all people to love freely and authentically. Marsha P. Johnson, a Black transgender woman and a key figure in the Stonewall riots, famously said, "No pride for some of us without liberation for all of us." Yeah. Her prophetic words encapsulating the intersectional essence of what Pride Month and Juneteenth both stand for. The understanding that true liberation cannot be achieved in isolation. It is an interdependent and collective journey, one that requires solidarity and support across all communities, one that requires our steadfast faith and our active hope, hope being what acclaimed lawyer Bryan Stevenson calls our superpower. Bryan Stevenson said, and I hope I get this right, that where hope fails, injustice persists. So hope is our superpower. At the heart of Juneteenth, Pride, and No Kings is the quest for freedom. Freedom or liberation from oppression, liberation to be oneself, liberation to live without fear of systemic persecution and violence, the freedom to migrate, as all humans have done throughout time, to places of safety and where one might thrive with others. If the present times are helping us to understand nothing else, I hope it is the realization that our struggles are intertwined and that freedom is a shared journey and our liberation is bound together. The queer Black feminist and activist Audre Lorde once said, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives." Her words reminding us that our identities are actually multifaceted and the struggles we all face are interconnected. The fight for racial justice cannot be separated from the fight for LGBTQ plus rights, which cannot be separated from the fight for no kinks. Each of these essential to not only our stand for democracy, but the recreation of it all together in our relentless pursuit of a just society as a spiritual, an ethical, and moral imperative. I invite us all to reflect upon the sacrifices made by those who came before us, to draw inspiration from their determination and courage. The abolitionists who fought for the freedom of enslaved people and the activists who stood up for LGBTQ plus rights remind us that change is possible when we unite in common cause. Their legacies teaching us the importance of solidarity and the power of community. In this moment in time, we are all called to advocate for policies that protect the rights of us all and that create spaces where everyone can thrive, because our voices, when united, when we do not shy away from difficult conversations and actions required to challenge the status quo and bring about meaningful change. We have the power then to shape our future in each present moment, one day at a time, and to uplift one another in the face of adversity. Our collective strength lies in our ability to support and empower one another, regardless of our backgrounds and our identities. As we celebrate Juneteenth, Pride and No Kings, I encourage you to also take some time to honor the tapestry, indeed the quilt, of identities that make up our communities, each thread, each piece, whether it be racial, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other aspect of who we are, contributing to the beauty and strength of our collective existence. As Audre Lorde also said, it is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. This celebration of the richness to be found in our differences is essential as we recognize that our differences are not barriers, but actually bridges that connect us in our shared humanity. This celebration connects us as we realize that the fight for justice is not a zero-sum game, because when one community rises, we all rise. So we must work together to dismantle systems of oppression because they impact us all. Creating spaces such as what we aim for here at ERUUF, where everyone can feel valued and respected. It's essential to building a more inclusive society. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," which, as we now see, is quite true. Therefore, our work is far from finished. We must strive to make sure this community right here and all communities are places where all people can thrive regardless of their background or identity. And we're not yet there yet, not even here at ERUUF or elsewhere, which is why our striving is important. But we can take a moment to celebrate the progress we have made, from the abolition of slavery to the legalization of same-sex marriage, as milestones to our collective fight for justice. And they, of course, do not mark the end of the journey, but simply milestones that we've got to protect. Milestones toward a more equitable future where everyone has what they need to thrive, to flourish. And the spirit of our superpower, hope, we might draw inspiration from the words of one of my favorite poets, ancestor poets, Langston Hughes, who said, "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly." May our dreams of justice, equity, and love guide us as we continue to fight for a transformed world for the well-being of all. And as we celebrate Juneteenth, Pride and No Kings, may we honor the past while looking forward to a future where true liberation is celebrated for all. May we be united in our intersectional quest from what has been toward what must be. For to not do so imperils us all. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so. As we know, it takes a whole lot, to create what we have here today. It takes our time, our talents, our creativity, imagination, our determination, and our treasure. And so as the greeters come forward to take up this morning's offering, it will go once again to our Generosity Sunday recipient, Reality Ministries. You can, and if you don't have something to give in the collection pouches, you may point your device at the QR code, and it will lead you to our giving portal, and just click on Generosity Sunday so that we can make sure that Reality Ministries receives what we have to offer.
Thank you, Reverend Brett. It may not seem like it on the face of it, but my life is an intersection of Pride and Juneteenth. When my now wife and I became a couple, we needed to choose a date to celebrate that. And as we're both Texans, we both really loved the idea of freedom because we both felt uniquely free in that moment. And because we shared a very strong affinity with the slaves who were not considered human enough to marry. So we chose Juneteenth. 30 years ago this year. And this next song was inspired by Reverend Brett. I know it may. She's taught me something very important, and that's the idea of ancestors. I had never understood how they could inform my life, guide me, support me, and how much they are a part of me. So this song is for Reverend Brett and the ancestors. The t-shirt read, "I am my ancestors' wildest dream." It made me smile, but then I thought, does that include me? A woman with a wife, living a different kind of life. Would they love me the way I am? No husband, no children, not a part of their plan. Is there a place for me on my family tree? Then suddenly that tree stretched out before me, and I realized out of all those lives I can't have been the only one. And I just knew there must have been a few. And I thought about their lives and how it was for them, pretending to be the same, waiting for a moment that never came. Stories unwritten, longings unspoken, for their whole lives, believing that they were broken and heaven was not for them, never knowing that wasn't true, or all they could have been. And what about the ones who live the truth? Not to everyone, only to a special few. Choosing joy over the shadows, risking dashed hopes, or a doctor, prison, or a rope. Refusing to drown in silence, but knowing it could all come crashing down. Risking everything for those moments when they felt free. In the sweet by and by, there are only lovers' cries of joy, of longings answered, gentle laughter, special sighs. They're all together, never, never to part, because the hand that made us will surely save us, making a place for us few. So I sing the song for them, the ones who had to hide, with no place at the table, back when our love was a crime. I wish I could have told them, you're not alone, but the best I can do is sing this song, knowing that for some who came before me, I am the wildest dream, with my wife's name next to mine on our family tree. Now when I see that tree stretched out before me, I have realized out of all those lives, I'm not the only one, and I know it's true. There must have been a few.
Beautiful.
Thanks for the answer.
Take your bow. Ah, what gratitude, what gratitude. We give thanks. I just feel we're so blessed to be in community together. Thank you for that, Lisa. Thank you. And yeah, before I just go on blathering, why don't you lead us in the closing? We give thanks for all the gifts of beloved community. I'm just feeling very moved right now. Yeah, go ahead.
Please join me in the closing hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. Stand in body or spirit, number 1007 in the Teal hymnal.
Our closing words today are by Jelani Cobb, the writer and dean of the Columbia University School of Journalism, who says, Juneteenth exists as a counterpoint to the 4th of July. The latter heralds the arrival of the American ideals. The former stresses just how hard it has been to live up to them. May we remember this, my friends. Go in love, go in peace, go with courage, and know that you are not alone. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be